Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and The Last of Us TV show from HBO Max is nearly upon us, coming out tonight. And in the recent weeks, I've made my thoughts on the show going into it very clear, taking all the information that we have from press releases, interviews, casting announcements, and the like. I believe that this show is going to be a gargantuan failure in terms of its adaptation, integrity, and just the quality of the writing itself. I have no doubt it's going to be viewed by a ton of people, break a lot of records, and the general normie audience, the stan audience, are going to enjoy it. But that doesn't make it good. That doesn't make it successful in terms of its quality or its adaptation integrity. And one of the biggest concerns, and there are a lot of concerns out there, but one of my biggest initial concerns about this show was the casting of Pedro Pascal. Joel's character is known as a very masculine character, a very hard character, a very badass character, honestly, because of what he's had to endure through the apocalypse. And some people are saying, oh, it's his age, and that doesn't come across right. That's unrealistic, and the show's responding to that with Pedro Pascal's casting. And it was just this weird argument for me why Pedro Pascal was actually the perfect person for Joel, even though he has none of the personality traits for Joel. He can't play Joel right, and that makes him perfect for Joel. It's never made any sense to me, and it seems like some of the creatives, including Neil Druckmann and even Pedro Pascal himself, talk about why he's actually the perfect person to play Joel, because he's not like Joel at all. We have this interview from the Polygon as well as Yahoo and a few other sources that talk about why the creators of The Last of Us TV show cast Pedro Pascal's Joel and made him softer than in the games. Now, this is just a ridiculous argument, and it's all surrounding what a current day 55-year-old is. They don't understand that maybe your lifestyle is going to be a little bit different living in the apocalypse when you're fighting for life for every single second of your day. We've seen even in the modern day, there are people in their 80s who are in incredible shape, who can do some feats of strength that would rival the young. It's really impressive what some older people can do. But in a world like this, where you have to fight for every scrap of bread, that you have to fight zombies around every corner, the military around every corner. He's a smuggler, for God's sake. He would not be facing the same issues that a 55-year-old would, because he's in great shape. Yes, he's aging, so he would occasionally feel it, but it wouldn't be to the degree that they need to cuck him entirely and remove all the masculinity, all the danger, all the competency of violence that Joel was able to perpetuate. He's a violent individual, and it's important to his character that he's able to do that, so that it shows an inverse with Ellie, and their journey is mirrored with each other as she becomes more violent and he becomes less violent because of their relationship together. It's an important distinction, and they're admitting it. Oh yeah, we changed the source material, even though every single article coming out is like, oh, it's the perfect adaptation. It is incredibly accurate, incredibly faithful to the source material, except for when we change it. It's faithful, except for when we change it, which is pretty much all the time. And I want to get into it. Coming from one of the directors, Mazin, said, Joel's walking in a crouch so much that he would have like these massive quads, right? No. Do you not know how to squat? He's not really squatting. He's just walking around really, really low. That's well below the official designation of a squat. So he shouldn't have massive thighs. Do you not understand that people can walk around like that in the dark and occasionally sneak past zombies? Is that something that is just so weird for you? Is someone walking around in a crouch for a few minutes? Oh my god, he must be a strong man. He must have to work out in the gym all the time with these massive quads if he can squat occasionally. Oh my god. 55-year-olds can't crouch for more than like 3 minutes tops, and then their back gives out. So embracing frailty. They're making Joel frail specifically because of his age, which isn't as relevant to a person in this sort of environment as it would be in the modern day. I think they forget that that world is so vastly different, that people's bodies are attuned to different things. They're in better shape generally because they have to be. So they're removing a lot of the key aspects of Joel's character, the violence he's able to do, the intimidation that he's able to do, just because, oh yeah, I'm like getting old and I don't think I could do it. And Pedro Pascal's comments are really what drive it home in this argument here that they have, why they should remove all this from Joel's character. They are bastardizing the source material. As much as the Access and mainstream media sites are trying to convince you that they are being incredibly faithful, it's decisions like these where they fundamentally misunderstand the characters and throw out so many key pieces of them for random reasons that don't make any sense like this that prove that they don't actually care. Joel, without his propensity for violence, or his capacity for violence more like, is not Joel. They're just making him into Joel from The Last of Us Part 2, where he was just a pathetic old man whimpering as he died. And that's the biggest fear I had going into the show, is that they would make things more Last of Us 2 than Last of Us 1. And doing this to Joel is a clear indicator that that is exactly what they are doing. Continuing, Drunkman in a separate interview said, and that was part of the casting of Pedro Pascal as Joel, we were less looking for someone who could play a tough guy. So they specifically chose Pedro Pascal because he wasn't tough, because he wasn't like Joel in the games. They looked for someone who did not match the source material. And that is just a proof that they do not care about the source material. If they're specifically looking for someone who isn't like it, then what is even this argument about them being faithful? It's like, yeah, Joel's this thing, but we don't want our Joel to be that thing, so we're going to do the opposite of that and hope everyone's okay with it, because we'll just call him racist because we're going to race swap him at the same time. It's all going to work out fine, everybody. And Pedro Pascal just cannot play the role of Joel. And everyone who's saying he can is deluding themselves. I saw people online saying he's the perfect person for Joel, and their proof was he wore a beard and he drove a car once. They were putting like side-by-side shots of Joel driving the car in the game and Pedro Pascal driving a car in the show. It's like, see, he did the same thing. It's like, no, he can't just do things like the character and assume that they're the same character. He has to be the same character in terms of what he's capable of and type of person he is. Joel is just coming across pathetic in all the trailers, and it seems like that was the intention, is that he is not the tough, intimidating force. Why would the Fireflies entrust someone who potentially would save the world to Joel if he's not capable of doing it? I mean, yes, they didn't intentionally want to do it on his own, but Marlene specifically said, hey, you and Tess go do this. If he wasn't up to the challenge, why would they do that? Marlene didn't need to do that. She could have just said, hey, get me out of here and we'll figure something out with the Fireflies. No, she specifically knew that Joel was a capable individual. This Joel is not a capable individual, so the very basis of the plot doesn't make any sense. From what they're describing, it's more like Ellie's the one who's leading the way across country and being the badass, and Joel's just kind of there for the ride. This isn't Joel. This isn't Ellie. This isn't The Last of Us in any way, shape, or form. And the Yahoo article actually gets some comments from Pedro Pascal specifically about this, but briefly he does mention how he responds to toxic fans, so I wanted to jump that in there real fast. Asked how we'd respond to toxic fans who might complain, he would say, this isn't my Last of Us. What does that mean? If someone's like, hey, you're doing a bad job, this is a bad adaptation, you're not right for the role, oh, this isn't my Last of Us. I really, really struggle to interpret that statement there, even with what he says after that in that paragraph. It just really doesn't make any sense. And every argument that I can come up with for explaining this nonsensical statement comes across as disingenuous because there's no basis of evidence to make any sort of claim in one way or another. The least bad faith interpretation of this statement that I can make is he doesn't care about The Last of Us. This isn't my Last of Us, so I don't care. And that's the best I can glean from that. But that's just a side tangent there. Going on, we have the comments from Pedro Pascal himself about why the character of Joel is no longer intimidating, why he's no longer competent in any way, shape, or form. Pascal says that it wasn't difficult to play the non-superhero version of Joel. I'm not really capable of surviving an apocalypse, he said laughingly. I had to bring my averageness to an iconically loved character. I hope it worked. Joel is not an average individual. He's an incredibly competent individual who is doing the best he can in a crappy situation. And yes, he does come across as a little superhero sometimes because of what he's capable of doing, but that's what makes him best suited for the role of protecting Ellie. And that's where the plot is instigated from. He needs to be competent, or the plot doesn't make sense, or you're not going to have really any sort of action sequences that make any sort of sense. If he's not competent, then it's just going to be a string of nonsensical luck in their journey across the country. It's going to be bafflingly stupid to watch if he does not have any degree of competency. And Pedro Pascal saying, I couldn't survive the apocalypse? Yeah, because you're not actually Joel. He's not talking about this like an actor should. Actors pretend for a living. Of course you wouldn't be able to survive the apocalypse. A lot of people wouldn't. But Joel, he had the tools to be able to survive the apocalypse. He had the talent. He had the capability of doing it. And that's what made him so good and excel so well in that sort of post-apocalyptic environment. He needed to be that way. He's not you, Pedro Pascal. Don't play yourself in this role, as it's clear that you're doing as a pathetic, weak man. Play Joel. This is the fundamental precept of acting, is don't play yourself, play the character. And Pedro Pascal's like, oh, well, I couldn't survive the apocalypse, so Joel, he just got lucky to do it, and he's just gonna be as pathetic and average as me. And that's like cool representation, guys. Isn't that awesome? And speaking of representation, that's what the entirety of this article is actually about, talking about the diverse cast, and you can't make everyone happy, and how, for some reason, the first game excelled at revolutionizing diversity in video games, which is a nonsensical statement whatsoever. It also talks about the coming out of Bella Ramsey and how that mirrors the character of Ellie. And it's just really baffling, the comment that Bella Ramsey has about Ellie's sexuality. Now, I don't have a problem with Ellie being gay. I think it actually works for her character, all things considered. I have a bigger problem with it being her age as a 13-year-old portraying in certain situations like that. I don't think we should sexualize people that young in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I find it disgusting and immoral because of the age involved of the characters. But speaking about Ellie, she says, Ellie just exists, and that's sort of how I feel. I just exist, undefined and unlabeled as a person. And I think that's what's cool about Ellie. You won't see a shift. She's just sort of existing, and that's what I hope to do as well. That is nonsense. That's almost pseudo-intellectual garbage. It doesn't mean anything. Ellie just exists, and that's her sexuality, is that she exists. What does that mean, Bella? What does that means absolutely nothing. She's undefined. No, there's a lot of definition to her character that make Ellie who she is. That's the whole point of a character, is you have to define a character to play a three-dimensional character. If she believes that Ellie isn't defined as a character, she's not going to be playing a good version of Ellie either. And this isn't Ellie, just like it wasn't Joel. What are these two actors thinking? What are these production companies thinking? What is HBO Max and the creators behind The Last of Us thinking when they're like, oh yeah, we let this person think that Ellie is just not a thing. She's just a non-entity. That's her sexuality. She's unlabeled, that she's undefined. None of that actually means anything. And like I predicted in a previous video where I mentioned Bella Ramsey's coming out, the situation and the argument around The Last of Us has near been consumed by her coming out by the access and mainstream media sites. It's being used as the defense against the show, and it's just becoming the herald of all the garbage in Last of Us and the defense against it. There are dozens and dozens of these articles about mainstream and access media sites saying, oh my god, she's gender fluid, everybody. Isn't that awesome? The Last of Us show is going to be fantastic. And she's just like Ellie. No, none of this matters. Actors act for a living, and they need to know what their characters are. Their characters aren't themselves. Their characters are defined, and access to mainstream media sites will always do what they do. As soon as they have a woke talking point to latch onto for a show, they will latch onto it with all that they have and use it as a weapon against the fans for as long as they possibly can, because it fits their narrative. This whole situation is nonsensical of a myriad of reasons, but the weaponization of it against the fans is the most heinous act in all of this. This is a confused young person, near a child at this point, and this gender fluid thing is being used against the fans to defend this show and act like it's the best thing about it is the fact that she's gender fluid. Oh my god, that makes the show good. It makes her good for the role of Ellie. No, she doesn't understand Ellie. And that's been proven in nearly every interview that she's done and every trailer that we see her in. She is not Ellie. Pedro Pascal is not Joel. None of these actors know what they're doing. None of these writers know what they're doing. And none of them care about The Last of Us in any sort of way. Bella Ramsey was, in fact, told not to watch or play the game. That's how much they don't care about the source material. They just want to do their own thing and slap the label of Last of Us on it as a marketing ploy to get the fans of that game in to watch their garbage zombie apocalypse adaptation fanfic nonsense. This isn't Joel. He is not a pathetic, weak man. Bella Ramsey's portrayal of Ellie is shallow and undefined by her own admission, and this show is going to be a disaster, just like I predicted it will be for many, many months now, and I cannot wait for tonight to have it all proven right. All these predictions proven right, just like all my predictions about the Witcher Blood Origin were proved more than correct. And I will go full razor fixed and say, once again, fuck you, I was right. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon.
Hey, yo, are you feeling what I'm doing up in here? Oh, I know you are. Do you miss all the good, compelling stories that we used to get back in Hollywood that they ain't putting down no more? I know you missing it. So check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern day mental illness issues, baby. Book 1, Down in Flames. Book 2, Apocalypse Then. These are currently on sale. What are you waiting for? Get your hands on them. And we got book 3, Kill the Dark, is coming down the pipeline. Just wait for all the good stuff that's dropping. You ain't gonna be disappointed, fam.